Well, stage performances, they just really take you away. They draw you in. I mean, there's nothing like, the night setting or the dancing and all the talent and the poetry. And it's like a dream world for so many people just to sit there and
Welcome to the Sean Squad Society podcast with your hosts, myself, Penny,
Cindy,
Dame Madonna,
and Doris.
Invite you to share our love and enthusiasm for all things Sean Cassidy, from his teen idol days to his recent adventure back on the road again. Please join us for our stories and memories that connected us to those happy days that helped create the Sean Squad Society podcast.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited about today's episode. We have a very special guest with us in the studio. Everyone knows that the Cassidy family has a deep root in theater. Jack and Shirley starred together in many, many stage productions. And we've talked about in previous episodes how Sean and his brothers have starred in different shows over the years. Sean's brother, Patrick, is the artistic director of Studio Tenn Theater Company located in Franklin, Tennessee. Today we have with us Studio Tenn's managing director, Todd Morgan. Todd has a diverse background in theater where he's been involved in both management and artistic capacities. He's managed the creative and administrative process for theater and theme park entertainment. He's with us today to talk about Studio Tenn. Welcome, Todd, to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm so glad to be here.
We are so happy to have you. And I just wanted to let you know there are four of us with you today. And you know me, but I want to introduce the other co-hosts, and I'll start with Penny.
Hi, Todd. I'm Penny. It's nice to meet you. And I do have to say, you have a very impressive resume.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've worked hard on that.
It sure looks like it. It sounds like it.
The next co-host with us is Dame. She's in Oklahoma.
hey, how you doing? It's a privilege to have you on our podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And next is Cindy. You actually met Cindy with me at Studio Tenn when we came down to present a check a couple of years ago. And Cindy is now one of my co-hosts with me on the podcast.
Yep. So this is Cindy, and it was nice to meet you. And yeah, we were at the Franklin Theater about a couple years ago, I believe.
That's right. It seems like it was just yesterday, but a lot has happened in those 2 years.
I bet.
So it's good to hear you again.
Good to hear you, too.
So that's us. We're all here with the Sean Squad Society podcast. And we, like I said, we are so thrilled to have you.
Yes, welcome.
I don't know
Thank you.
if you don't mind, Todd, we just want to start with some questions and get the ball rolling on this party.
That sounds great. Let's jump in.
Well, Todd, you're the managing director, and we just want you to briefly tell us, what does that really mean?
Yeah, so typically in a nonprofit theater company, there's usually some type of dual leadership. And in most cases, that's split between a managing director and an artistic director. And kind of as the name implies, most of the administrative functions, including, everything from finance to facilities to human resources, fall on the side of the managing director versus what we all think of the creative side of putting the shows together and hiring the directors and the creative team to put on the actual productions. That all falls to our artistic director. In this case, as Doris mentioned, is Patrick Cassidy. And so that's kind of how we split that. We both equally report to our board of directors because we are a nonprofit. And then all of the positions below us report up either to the administrative or the, as I like to call it, the production side of the theater company.
Yeah, it sounds like you have so many parts in that role, doing creative posters, writing, sales, transportation. Sounds like you do it all.
Right. I call it a jack of all trades, and similar to when I was in the theme park business, there are things that you didn't know you were going to have to know that you had to learn either on the fly or in some cases actually get some training for. I remember back in the day, I got certified trained to do pyrotechnics because that was something I had to actually oversee the implementation and training and hiring of young talent to actually do the pyrotechnics for a Halloween event. So, similar in this role there, as I mentioned, human resources, we're not a big enough company to have a human resources department. I outsource a lot of that work, but as far as internally, I am the de facto HR director, if you will.
I just wanted to say I never knew you needed certification to do pyrotechnics so you don't burn the whole theater down. I never knew that.
Or the theme park.
Yeah, we did all of ours outdoors, which was nice, but just there again for all things safety. I was talking to a theater teacher yesterday who was doing a production of Xanadu, and of course they're roller skating, as we all remember the movie
yes.
Xanadu.
Yep.
And she's had safety training for all of her students to come in and learn. So they're all doing it, safely as well as having fun doing the show.
Wow.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you're like a mentor for all the young staff.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Did you have another question, Dane?
I do. And with Studio Tenn Theater Company, it consists of several theaters within the company. Is that true? And are the shows running at different theaters or are they all at the same theater?
Great question. So it's just one company, so I'll start there. So we are Studio Tenn Theater Company, and within that, we are starting to develop what I call ancillary programming. For example, we started a cabaret series during the pandemic that we performed at TPAC, which is the large performing arts center in Nashville. And actually, we just started our revamped education program yesterday and performed at one of the local middle schools. But our primary function is for main stage musicals and plays. And we just opened a brand new theater, believe it or not, this past Thursday. And it was actually in the space where we had our old theater, but they completely renovated that. And so that will be our home for the future, and we will do all of our productions there. I will say in the past, we have been somewhat of a vagabond theater because of not having a permanent home. We have traveled around to many of the spaces. You mentioned the Franklin Theater a while ago.
Yeah.
We've also been in Nashville. We've performed at the Ryman and TPAC and multiple other venues in the area. And some of that was due to the specifics of that show, and some of it was due to not having a permanent home. So we are just thrilled to actually have that dream come true, if you will. And like I said, just literally 3 days ago, opening a brand new theater here in Franklin, and that will be the permanent home of Studio Tenn for all of our main stage plays and musicals. We typically do 4 to 5 shows a year in that space.
Hey, Todd, did I hear you say you guys were at the Ryman? Because that gave me goosebumps.
Wow, I know.
I did a tour of the Ryman when I was visiting, when I came down to visit, and just the history of that theater, I would have loved to have seen a production there. That is so cool that you guys actually did a stage production at the Ryman.
We did. We've actually done 2. One was before my arrival, and the second one was the first year that I was here. The company years ago started a series called the Legacy Series, and what that was basically an honoring a given artist, recognizable name usually that everybody would know, and performing the music of that artist. It was never meant to be an impersonator show. It was meant to take that artist's music and make arrangements that you were either very familiar with or maybe some arrangements that were different. And so, for example, we've done multiple legacies. We've done Hank Williams. We've done Johnny Cash. We actually did a Hank Cash mashup one year.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first one at the Ryman was the Johnny Cash Legacy, which was amazing. And then the first year I was here, we did a legacy of Glenn Campbell. And it was fairly recently after his passing, so it was very timely. We had his family involved. Actually, some of his children were in the production itself. And it is a magical place, as you said, if anybody's been there, and it's very iconic to Nashville. But in that, that's one of those cases I was talking about where that really was specific to the production. We felt that to honor those artists and to do it in that vein and that platform, we wanted to have somewhere like the Ryman to really showcase that. And so we were just thrilled to be there and have those productions seen by so many people and visitors to Nashville as well.
Yeah, what a neat connection.
Yeah, the Ryman is totally cool. I used to live in Nashville and at the Ryman several times. And yes, every time you step foot in there, yeah, and I've even cried in there before, and especially when I saw Loretta Lynn live, that really brought out the tears. So,
well, they do call it the Church of Country Music, so I think it's okay to cry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Johnny Cash. Well, he's one of my relatives, so that's pretty cool.
Well, that's cool. Well, just a quick segue from there, we just opened our new theater with a show called $1 Million Quartet,
Yeah.
which features Johnny Cash, based on the infamous night in 1956 where all four of these icons got together in Sun Studios. And we have an amazing Johnny Cash that all of the ladies seem to love and wait for after the show. So,
well, Todd, I'm going to ask a question, but I think you may have answered it a little bit with one of Dame's questions. And I follow Studio Tenn and social media, as well as Patrick and Melissa. So I got to see a lot of clips from your opening. Thursday night, was it?
That was, yes.
Yeah.
This past Thursday.
Yeah, it was beautiful, very beautiful and very elegant. But if there is something that you didn't touch on the Turner Theater, go ahead and share that with us.
Absolutely. Well, I'll kind of give you the answer I gave a friend of mine last night who was their first time ever in Franklin, and much less the factory and definitely the Turner Theater. The factory building itself is a historic landmark here in Franklin. It used to be a mattress factory. Once upon a time was a stove work company. And then a number of years ago was actually made into kind of a mini shopping mall, but keeping that very historic industrial vibe to the facility. And in 2014, that's where Studio Tenn moved in as a theater company to start producing their shows. Unfortunately, the space we were in was not really an actual theater. It was just really an event space. So every time we were to do a production, I always give the analogy of opening a restaurant and installing all of the appliances every time, having to remove them when it was over.
Oh, gosh.
Because we literally built the theater every time we did a show. And so in 2021, a new organization purchased the factory, and they're actually revitalizing the whole entire property, complete with new shops, new restaurants. And so we've partnered with them basically to renovate this space into an actual purpose-built theater. So we have a complete 320-seat theater now, including a balcony. It also has retractable seating. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but you can actually retract all of the seats to make an event space with tables and chairs. If you wanted to do a fancy, reception, wedding reception or special event. So it can be a multi-use space. As I said before, we do 4 to 5 main stage productions a year, but in the weeks that we're not in there, the factory would be able to utilize that for other companies. We have just asked that we be the only theater in there because we want not to have any brand confusion with the theater in the Franklin factory. But it's amazing. I'm glad you saw the photos and the opening night. It was just a big celebration for the community. We had over 150 people come out just for the ribbon cutting in the morning. So we knew there was a lot of excitement in the community. And you see that big marquee now. It looked very New York.
Yeah,
like you're walking down the street in New York. And we have our own permanent box office out front, and we've already seen a tremendous amount of excitement and traffic of people just walking up to buy a ticket. And
Oh,
so
that is
we're
so cool.
we're
We'll have to make
super
another
excited.
trip.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you'll have to see it. And we're excited not to build the restaurant anymore. To
Right.
have permanent seating, permanent light, permanent sound is just amazing. And now we can really concentrate on the productions, which is what we do.
Right, right. Well, you know, I did have a question, but I hadn't really prepared it. But you did talk about the retractable seating. I was wondering, after seeing on Thursday on social
The
media,
unveiling of Turner
Right.
Theater.
yeah, I was wondering if you guys were going to do like wedding receptions and special events and things, you
Mhm.
know, because of the space I was seeing.
Yeah, that's where,
So,
like I said, all of the orchestra seating will fully retract all into sort of the back area. And then you have that whole open space that you can use for tables and chairs. It can also partially retract. And actually, our last show of this season is Cabaret, which is the Tony Award winning musical based on the movie. And we're going to have it partially retracted so we can put some cabaret tables and chairs down front, just to really add that atmosphere for the show itself.
well, that's really good. Well, I know right now you guys have Million Dollar Quartet plan and it's been extended. Do you have anything you would like to share about that production?
Sure, I will be the first one to say I've tried to get the rights to the show for about 6 years, ever since I got here. One, because I just think it's a perfect show for Nashville. I also think it's a
Yeah.
perfect show for our theater, our space, and the type of shows that we do. And in our town, I mean, we are called Music City for a reason, and a lot
Right.
of our audiences loves that combination, as I talked about the shows at the Ryman, and you know, the fact that you can sort of combine this great music and these iconic names with a theatrical production. I saw the show years ago. I actually used to work with the original Broadway director of this production,
Oh,
and I just thought it was so smart and how it was put together. You get all of their storylines, sort of how they met, how they started at Sun Records, and then you get a lot of their greatest hits. And I just think I knew the audiences would love it. Patrick, of course, was familiar with the show as well, so we started on a journey several years ago to get permission to do the show. And once we knew the opening dates and timeline, we just knew it was the perfect show to open the theater. It just about blows the roof off. I mean, there's a 15-minute encore at the end of the night where the audience is on their feet the entire time. And
Wow.
Yeah.
it's just a tremendous show. And we have 4 amazing gentlemen that play these icons, and they've all done the show before, and they just bring a lot of wealth and high energy to the table. We had an amazing review that just came out yesterday. It basically says that we blew the roof off of the brand new Turner Theater. So
Wow.
it's very exciting. And we hope everybody that in the area can come and see it.
if I can just interject real quick, I don't know who wouldn't know what the Million Dollar Quartet is, but maybe you could tell briefly, because I've seen it twice, but briefly what the show is about, because we know,
Sure.
and a lot of people are like, what are they talking about? man?"
Right.
I don't really know it either.
So the legendary story is that on December 24th, 1956, Sun Records, for one reason or another, all 4 of these icons, and I'll list them for you, which would be Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and Elvis Presley, all ended up in the recording studio on the same night and basically ended up in a jam session.
Wow.
Now, there's probably variable things that happened, and of course, they probably took some liberties with telling the story itself. But that's basically the premise. They all end up there, and they all end up playing each other's songs for the course of the evening. And meanwhile, Sam Phillips, who was the famous music producer of Sun Records, he serves as a narrator for the show and talking about how he met each one of them when he signed them on Sun Records, and then how they went on their journey, and of course to how we know them today, being, you know, 4 of the biggest icons in history. But we get to hear all the greatest hits: Great Balls of Fire, Folsom Prison Blues, Hound Dog, you name it. They're all, you know, Matchbox. Can't leave out Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all play their own instruments. That's another key thing about this show that makes it really unique. Jerry Lee is one of the most, incredible piano
Yes.
players. Carl Perkins, one of the most incredible guitar players. And you get that with this show as well. So the band is the cast, and they're on stage the entire time. And it ends with a photo of the actual four legends on that night in 1956. And so it is a true event that happened. And then the book writers, just kind of took some liberty in telling their story. And ironically, we had the original music director and one of the book writers come to our dress rehearsal last Wednesday, because they both, of course, live in Nashville. And
that's
they were very
cool.
complimentary and very encouraging about the production.
Have you guys ever thought about selling tickets for a live viewing? So, like, if we wanted to see one of your productions.
You mean online?
Yeah, like online.
Oh.
So I could buy a ticket and watch it live.
Live streaming.
Live streaming. And,
Yes.
be an audience on one of the productions.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you a couple answers on that. We've looked at it multiple times, especially during the pandemic when, live theater was not accessible to everyone, and we were looking at ways to do that. I will tell you that because we're a professional theater company, we do work with an actors union, and currently that union has basically put the kibosh on that streaming aspect. At least making it affordable for most companies to do. I know that they were trying to work out something with the film union, because once you get into streaming, then you kind of cross over into the rights of the Film Artists Union, which is SAG. And so that's something that we hope to maybe be there in the future. It's just not currently an option for us.
What I was thinking, that it wouldn't feel the same anyway. So when you're sitting
Correct.
there in the audience and you're enjoying the stage, you feel like you're right there with these guys that are so musical.
Absolutely.
And it just takes you back to that
Which is a great segue to something that I always preach about, is that experience of live theater, and that you can't match it on film. I've seen many productions online, and it's great to be able to see something, especially, from the National Theatre of London or from Broadway, but it doesn't have the same feel. And I know that post-pandemic, a lot of theaters have been struggling to get audiences back, because it's hard to, get them off their couch and their Netflix subscription. But we know that nothing really matches that experience of the live theater. The encore that I was just talking about, you wouldn't be able to feel that energy if you were not in the room itself. And so we want people to experience that, and we think that it's just very unique in what we do. And I'm really encouraged with this new space and seeing a lot of excitement about people coming out, even for the first time, to experience live theater.
Well, I'll definitely stop by next time I'm in the Nashville area.
I could see this in my head, this production, but to be there, you feel it.
Oh, definitely.
I think is why you need to be
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
You feel it, and you're more emotional about it when you're there.
Yeah, definitely. But, it's like living in the Chicago area. I can't get there to see it all the time. But if I still lived in the Nashville area, I'd be at every one of your productions.
There is a difference when you're actually there. Yeah, definitely.
So that's why I was asking, because I would definitely, buy a ticket and stream it, feel a part of it.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and Todd, I had
We need
a
to get
question.
back there as a group.
Yes, definitely, right? We should go as a group. I just had a question about how long does it usually take a production to put together with something like this?
Well, putting it together is maybe a longer question, because, we start probably a year in advance getting the rights, and then having meetings and finding all of the, creatives and the actors to put it together. But physically putting it together is actually a pretty short process for us. We do a 2-week rehearsal process, and then about a half a week of what we call tech, which is adding the lights and sound and costumes and all of the stage elements. And then we open the show, and we usually run for about 3 weeks. It's a 5-week contract altogether, which is pretty short in the world of theater. But like I said, we do, it's a full-time 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, putting the rehearsals together. But it's a pretty quick process.
Oh, that's good. I thought it took longer than that. And then what upcoming shows are you most excited about in the future that you're working on?
Yeah, well, we have a great season this year. We're doing a 4-show season this year simply because of the timeline of the opening. So we're in Million Dollar Quartet now. We run for another 2 weeks, and then we take a little break, and then we come right back with our holiday show, which is It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play. And I've explained this a couple times that it's not on the radio, but it actually takes place in a radio station. And another historic kind of moment in time, and when these actors all came together in a radio station to tell the story of It's a Wonderful Life. And it's really a beautiful production. We did it 2 years ago, and we're bringing it back, some of the same cast. And we've set it in Franklin, so we've got a lot of local ties to the local radio station and some other sponsors that are in the show. But it's still the beautiful traditional show of It's a Wonderful Life. And then in the spring, we're doing Driving Miss Daisy. This is a classic show, and we're super excited about that. And then we're going to end the season with the production of Cabaret, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, you have a great lineup.
We got to go see these. Yeah, you got a really good lineup there.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We've got a lot of great people, and we're fortunate to have a lot of talent here in Nashville. And then when we need to, we bring them in from out of town as well. But it's very exciting. We're already starting to work on next season, but can't give any of those away yet because those are not confirmed.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot going on. Like I said, got a lot of other ancillary program. We also have a big spring fundraiser we do in the spring, and which is basically another show that we do.
Wow.
So it's very exciting. It's a great season, and lots of talent and lots of great stories that we're telling.
Yeah, and I heard you have some pretty well-known names.
Yeah, we just announced we're calling it our fall fundraiser, but it's similar to the Sean event that you came to a couple of years ago. We're doing a one-night concert. Last year we had Michael Feinstein, and this year we have Jason Alexander, which most people probably know from Seinfeld fame.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
Exactly. So
That's
he will actually, he's the last day of Million Dollar Quartet. We'll have a 2:00 matinee, and then that evening we'll have Jason on our stage with his own one-man show. So we're super excited.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I was thinking about moving to Nashville one day, and that would be great just to be in the area and experience all of these things.
I know.
We are here to talk about Studio Tenn, but the main thing I want to push, Todd, if you don't mind, theater is theater, and Chicago has a very active
we do.
Community theater.
Absolutely.
And I go and I support. I go maybe 3 times a year to see a live production. So I want everyone to know that you haven't lived until you've seen a live stage production.
True.
So go see something.
Absolutely.
You could go to local community. You could go to big downtown. You could go. To me, a high school production is a great way to see a production.
I'm going to go see Mamma Mia at the...
Oh, you are?
At Sycamore High School in a couple of weeks, yeah. So I'm excited to support, that local high school.
It's a musical, yeah.
Yes.
Have conversations all the time with peers across the country. And like I said, it is still a hard time for theater in general. And so the more we can get out there and support that and help train younger patrons to enjoy that art form as well. You're talking about the high school level and kids growing up. I was so encouraged yesterday with our education event to see kids growing up doing that and learning not only the performing side, but the technical side of putting it together, and how important that is to keep our industry alive. And, most of us are nonprofits. So, we have to have not only ticket sales, but contributions that help support that. And as you mentioned, your organization was able to help us in the past, and we rely on that to keep all those amazing Mamma Mias and Million Dollar Quartet on the stage.
Well, stage performances, they just really take you away. They draw you in. I mean, there's nothing like, the night setting or the dancing and all the talent and the poetry. And it's like a dream world for so many people just to sit there and to feel that. And I'm a teacher. And sometimes children or even teenagers, they don't know about this. course, a high school musical, but this is even deeper and more special. And
Sure.
that makes it pretty neat that they have the movie. But like you said, there's nothing like sitting there in the middle of it.
Right. Yes. Having those, it's like a good film, and having those stories come to life and actually
live.
being able to help you visualize that and experience that. And in some cases, telling stories that you're not as familiar with, and we love the idea that it's a conversation piece as well, that you walk away, and even if it's not your favorite production, that it stirs some thoughts inside of you and say, well, I've never really thought about that before, or did that actually happen? Or
educational.
sometimes just to feel good,
Yes,
in the
exactly.
case of this show right now, you may have learned a little something about each of these icons aside from their number one hit, but you also walked away with just a high energy feeling and just really, just really glad you were there.
That is so true. And you always want more. So that's why you see these shows. I see a production like Million Dollar Quartet 2 or 3 times because you go away feeling that I want to see that again. It leaves you wanting so much more.
And you miss things. Of course, being in the business, I see shows multiple times, but you might miss something the first time, or you come back again and you're like, I'm gonna just watch Jerry Lee Lewis tonight, and and see what he does throughout the show, and it's fun. I love hearing audiences talk about things like that as well.
Well, Todd, I had a question for you. You've hit on this a couple of times, and it's near and dear to me. Studio Tenn, not-for-profit. How can our followers, support Studio Tenn by making a donation?
Well, the easy way, of course, is like many of us, we have online giving. So you can go right to our website at studiotenn.org, and we have a donation page there. If you're at the production itself, we have this amazing little device called a dip jar where you just dip your credit card in and make a donation.
How cool is that?
Dip
Easy.
jar.
It's really
Yeah.
cool. It's like a slot machine, only nothing comes out. But I gave this analogy, and I thought it was kind of corny the other night, but my wife really liked it, so I'll give it to you today. Is that I told everyone in the audience, if everyone in the audience gave us their Starbucks money once a month, not every day, just once a month for 12 months, you could actually purchase the set and the costumes in this production that you're about to see.
Oh, I believe it.
And I say that to say it doesn't take a 6-figure check. Although I joked that if somebody wanted to write that, I would be glad to talk to them. But it could take as little as your cup of coffee from Starbucks and say, hey, this month I'm just going to give that $5 to Studio Tenn. And that starts adding up. And as I said before, ticket sales doesn't support a theater organization entirety. In fact, ours is probably half of our income, and so the contributions have to support the other half, have to pay for the lights and this all of the other things that we do, and the staffing and all of the things. And so, like I said, that little piece I think is a great perspective to have, because it is an expensive art. It's not cheap to do what we do, but we think that it's vital, and we want to keep that intimacy of 300 seats. We don't want to have, Broadway ticket prices. We want it to be accessible as well. And so the contributions, as you said, Doris, really make that a possibility. But that's the best way to do it. Obviously reaching out to us directly. We're still in a capital campaign, so we have people actually purchasing seats in their name or in honor of a loved one. And that's been a really great way for people to be involved. Not at a super high level, but at a substantial level where we can recognize them, but also help pay for the construction of the theater itself.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's the best way to give back at Christmas time or something. If you don't want to buy a lot of gifts, you're older, you think you have everything. Give back by supporting theater and make a donation.
Yes.
Be it Studio Tenn or your local community theater. It's the best way for me, anyway, to give back.
Yeah.
That's great.
Putting money towards the arts is priceless.
Yes. And it gives back. It really does in many ways.
So, Todd, my
Definitely.
final question for you. Do you have any questions for us? And we'll try not to talk all at once, and maybe we could go in order, and answer it if you have any.
Yeah, I think maybe we will go in order. I mentioned to Doris that one of the questions, and we've already had a couple of little mentions earlier in this conversation. I heard her Mamma Mia and different things, but I love to hear someone's personal story of a live theater experience that they had, something that was memorable. It was just an extremely good show, or they ran into somebody famous, or whatever that surrounding experiences. And I would love to hear from each of you before I go, is to tell me one of those stories that sticks out in your mind. And I'll go last with mine. But Cindy, maybe we start with you.
All right. Well, the first one, I haven't been to too many. The first one I saw was Little Johnny Jones back, I think, in 1981. David Cassidy was in that show. That was my first experience ever, and it really blew me away. Of course, I did see Blood Brothers, too, back in 94 with Sean and David Cassidy, and that also blew me away.
I saw that, too.
Yes. It was a great show. We had an episode about that, and that was great. But there's some other ones I'd like to go see, like The Phantom of the Opera. I would love to see that. Mm-hmm. So there's some shows I still would love to see that I haven't seen yet, but I'm blown away by the ones I saw.
Here's a piece of trivia for you. The Phantom himself is only on stage for 25 minutes in the entire show.
Really?
Really?
Yeah,
just a little trivia for you.
We do fun facts sometimes, and thank you for the fun fact.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Dane, how about you?
Well, I have two, but the main one is Cats. And I don't know, are they still doing that Broadway?
It is not.
Yeah, but I went to it a few times, and I loved it. They say even people that hated Cats still love this show.
Right.
And I loved how each cat had their separate costume, and they each had their chance, kind of like all of us girls right now. They each had their chance to talk about their part in the singing voice. And so that made it very personable. But my favorite was Grisabella, and it was because she was shunned by the other cats at first. And that's why when she came back, it shows that everyone needs to have second chance. Well, when she came back, they accepted her back in. And I remember sitting there and looking at the stage, and it was so beautiful. And my husband, he's a fine artist too. He has a degree in fine art. And he always tries to get me to go to Broadway shows. Well, throughout the years, I've started enjoying them more. But with that one, it just brought tears or happy tears to my eyes. I don't know what it was, but it may be that I could relate to that show since my grandmother used to get me up at 5 a.m. She lived at Hollywood Boulevard, and we'd get up at 5 a.m. and go out and feed the stray cat. And it just, so it made it very personal. And I just love that. It's like a Broadway sermon with the second chances. And my other one is the one that Cindy was talking about. And of course, Phantom of the Opera. My husband really likes that one too. And how, like Grisabella, the Phantom was pretty much cast out. And so he was lonely and fell in love. And I like that he fell in love like, regular people. But was he hurt. So that one's very, very romantic, but so much depth in both of these.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I love that. Penny?
Well, like Dame, Cats is definitely my favorite, and I've seen it many, many times. And then, I've seen Phantom of the Opera and several others, but another favorite is Book of Mormon. And I like a lot of musicals myself. I've just,
That's great.
Yeah. And, I have 3 boys, and each of them have a favorite that I've taken them to see. And those are some fond memories that I have. And I'll let Doris go next. And
she has many.
No, I've been, Todd, I just want to share with you really quickly. I have some fond memories, but it's not about specific productions. My first very fond memory is going for the first time to see a stage production. I was in high school, and I went and saw Beatlemania, and that was the very first theater production I ever saw, And that's what made me really, really decide I'm going to always see live theater. It was such a really good show. And then the next thing is, when I was a kid, I took my mom a little bit before she passed away to a theater production downtown Chicago at our Opera House to see 42nd Street. And I made it real special for her, and I bought, I'm getting choked up, I bought orchestra seats up front, and she just loved it. Everything about that show. So 42nd Street is really, really near to me, dear. And then finally, on a lighter note, I'm going to turn this around and tell you that when Patrick came to town years ago, I told you this before, in 2005, he came to town to do Joseph, and he was so nice and humble. He invited my sister and I backstage, and we met his family, and his son was in Joseph as one of the little kids in the choir, and his wife was the narrator. So we got to go backstage and meet Patrick and his family and talk to the cast and hang out for a little while. And those are my 3 favorite moments.
Yeah. I forgot to say one thing, and it was about, the Cats performance with the song Memory.
My favorite.
My husband's father is a singer, but he's a manly man. And so you couldn't even picture him ever singing the song Memory, but he sang it in our wedding. And it was just huge for him to do that. It made it special.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, I love all of your stories. Those are all great. And you can hear right away how it ties to you personally or a family member in making those connections. And, 2 of my favorites, of course, I've seen many shows, no surprise. But, 2 of my favorites are one was that I did get to see Hamilton when it was off Broadway before people really knew about it. And what I loved about the experience, there was kind of a who's who in the audience, and they did a talk back about making the show. But you could feel the energy in the room that they had just changed the game of musical theater, and that we were entering a new era of stylistic and representation of diversity on stage. And it was just it was a great moment for me as a theater artist. And the other one, ironically, is the infamous Lion King that is still running today, and probably one of the hardest.
I forgot about Lion King. Yeah,
it changed the world of theater.
Yeah,
I've taken my kids. I took my kids years ago. I surprised them with tickets. They didn't know we had tickets to see the Lion King, and I just remember their experience and how amazing it was for them, and just transformative. And then recently, one of my daughters took her kids to the Lion King and had a similar experience. And that was just really a full circle moment. And just there again, that power of the theater and what it can do for all ages. And that was just really special.
Yeah. And Todd, I heard that you like to sing too, like in a men's quartet or something.
I do. I mean, I actually have an undergrad in musical theater myself and have sung for a long time. And when I lived in D.C., I sang with a men's group called Brethren, which was comprised of mostly members of the men's military chorus of the armed forces. And they were very, very elite group of singers. I was very privileged to sing with them. We mainly did, more sacred type songs. I'm actually singing with them this coming January. But yeah, I've been known to sing here and there. I sang at our fundraiser last year, and I filled in for a gospel quartet about a month ago, checking off one of my bucket list items. I was actually right up near Chicago. I had to learn 14 songs in 48 hours and sang the bass part. And even sang backup for an Elvis impersonator in the evening. Because, Elvis always had the Jordanaires, right?
Right, yes.
We'll be listening or looking.
Well,
There
real fast.
you go.
Yeah, real fast. What is your favorite gospel song?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I love the tried and true, like the How Great Thou Art. I mean, just where you have a true, you've got to have a true vocal ability to really do it justice.
Right.
But I love stuff like that, and then I love the four parts. When you can have the harmony and things like that. The little talk with Jesus and stuff
Right.
like that, where it gets fun for the bass singer.
Right.
But I love that tight harmony. One of my favorite musicals is also Forever Plaid. I've done 6 times, and it's
Wow.
just a really unique show to have a 4-part male ensemble like that, and it's really a unique experience. I had a gentleman run into last night at our theater, haven't seen in almost 20 years, and we had done Forever Plaid together. So it's a really cool full circle moment.
That is a great moment.
Yes,
and
yes.
next time you're performing, I'm going to try to find you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Oh,
all
right.
of us. Exactly.
Another
I
road
said we're
trip.
going to look.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, we really, really loved having you on our podcast, and I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this with us
Yeah,
today.
we learned a lot too.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much, Todd.
I thank you all for having me on. I just wanted to say thank you.
You're more than welcome. Theater is near and dear to each of us, and I think now it's a little bit nearer and a little bit dearer.
Sure is.
Sure is. Yep, absolutely.
And we'll be down in Franklin
Special.
again.
So thank you so much,
Yeah.
and thanks for joining us, listeners, and we hope everybody had a great time talking about musical theater or any other theater. You could go see a play for that matter.
Hey, Todd, before we go, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you in Studio Tenn?
Sure. Yes. Our website is studiotenn.org, and that's Studio Tenn, TENN, like the state of Tennessee. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram. And as we mentioned earlier, we post all of our upcoming events on all of those platforms. And that's the best way to find us. You can also find me on Facebook as well. And we try to keep everybody up to date on what's happening here, not only at Studio Tenn, but in the Nashville theater community.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you from the bottom of our teen dream hearts.
Keep on crushing.
Always believe in magic.
And have a peaceful, shantastic week.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and make sure to keep in touch with us on our email.
SeanSquadSociety@gmail.com.
The Sean Squad Society podcast, including past, present, and future versions, and its contents, are owned and controlled by the Sean Squad Society. The views and opinions are solely those of the Sean Squad Society podcast. The Sean Squad Society is written and produced and recorded at the Borden Studios. We may think we are always right, but we will get something wrong from time to time. So we assume no responsibilities or errors of submissions of content.